Good morning. This is a New York focused overview of family law software. So let's start by talking about an overview of the software. Some of you may be looking at the screen and saying, geez, that doesn't look exactly like my software. If you are using the cloud version, this is what your software will look like. The desktop version has tabs on the top and then menus down the left side of the page for each tab. All we've done here is we've moved those tabs over to the menu bar on the left side. That menu bar can expand and collapse so that when you get really good and you don't need the words and the prompts, you'll be able to have a little more screen real estate for the program. It's the same basic tabs. Enter data is where you're going to put in all the information. Even if you are completing support calculations or you are putting together your net worth statement, you're not going to start out by typing into the net worth statement. What you're going to want to do is enter the data, and then the program will automatically complete those worksheets. So what we have here is the support and maintenance data is a short version of all of the data that can be entered into the program. And this would be just the data related to support and spousal maintenance. We have two screens here for data entry. There is a quick screen for your simple cases or when you're just getting started on a case and you want to figure out what the situation is, maybe get a quick down and dirty on maintenance or on spousal maintenance or on child support. Sometimes you don't have enough information at the beginning of the case for even that. If their financials are a little more complex, let's say there's two jobs, two employers for one of the parties, or other sources of income than just wages, then you can go to the complete page. This is what you may be used to seeing. And this will have all of the pieces that can go into the support calculation. We do have the ability to either use the statutory cap, which ignores the income above 163,000, or we can use a higher cap and you can put in whatever amount that is. So I'm going to put in here 200,000. Then that's going to be the cap for this case. And you can change it for each case. You can also use no cap, which would give you the ability to say whatever their income is what's going to be included. And that can end up changing our support amounts and also changing the maintenance amounts. Okay. Now, when we are entering data in the first instance, you got a new case, you got some information, you're going to open a new file. In the cloud version, we have a new file manager feature, which takes the open, save, send page, essentially from the files and settings, and puts most of that into file manager. So what we're going to do here is look at opening a new file. So I open File Manager, and you can see I have my files and then shared files. And if I have the firm version, which I do, but for my law practice, I have a different login. So you're not going to see my law practice cases. I think that's probably something our ARDC would approve of. And you can see all the firm files if you have the firm version. Shared files are the ones that you send to the client to enter the data. And My files are the ones that I've started entering data in myself. So what I can do here is I can take this new, and I click on it, and it gives me a choice of starting a new file for myself, for my data entry, or I can register the client and they will get an email with a link to allow them to do the data entry. Typically in my law practice, that's what we do. We do not do the data entry ourselves most of the time. Every once in a while, you get somebody for whatever reason would prefer to pay us to do it, but most people don't. So we go in here and I'm going to put in their name and email address, the other party's name, state. So I would change this, of course, to New York for you guys. And once that's your state, mine is going to say Illinois because that's the information that the program has about me. And then I can name the file as well. That's a new feature. And we don't have to, but we can sample New York. I'm going to name it. And then I'm going to register the client. And when I do that, they will get an email allowing them to start entering the data. You will get an email, the licensed user will get an email, which will tell you that you've confirmed that you've sent them that email. And that is very helpful in keeping track of who you sent the email to and who you didn't. Okay, now when they start working on the file, and I'm going to open up a shared file. This doesn't have all the information. It's just a test one. But what they will see when they open it up is this. Enter your information, and then we give them sections that they will start filling out, and they can open up each section, fill it out, and then as they go through, they will click done for each section. And when they are all done, when each section is done, then they can send you a second email, which it's actually, you will have an email in between. When they start working on it, you will get an email confirming that they've started working on entering their data. That's helpful. I find very often they've already been telling me for weeks that, oh yeah, I'm working on it. And I know they haven't because I haven't gotten that confirmation email that they're working on it. And you can check in anytime and see how they're doing on entering the data. And then when they're done, they can click done for now. And it emails the licensed professional to start looking at their data. And then when you do that, you can look at a bunch of information. But the interesting thing is they always make mistakes, right? Everybody does it, whether you gave them paper data forms or you've given them some of the other kinds of forms that we have, or whether you have put in the information yourself, there's always going to be mistakes. So what I do when I get their information, when I get that notification it's done, I go immediately to more reports. And here there are 3 pages for lawyers, for planners, and graphs. I like the planners page for this because this has a function that allows me to click multiple reports and have them come as one PDF, print out as one PDF. So I do report number 6, the budget report, which is the same as the budget report here on the left side of the page. And I do report number 17, the property statement. So the property statement is all the assets and debts or liabilities. And the budget report is all the income and expense. Excuse me, my throat is a little dry this morning. And the between these two, you've now captured all the information that they've entered. And you can open up each report and look at it and check it and, make sure that you've got the information from them that they need. Maybe you would see some information, like sometimes I'll see something like auto insurance at $1,200 a month. And I know that's not right. So I also can go into the budget report options. So for each report in the program, or almost every single one, at the top of the page, there are options for that report. Those options don't change the data. They just change what shows on the report. So maybe for this budget report, I only want to show Cherry's information, or maybe I just want to show the expenses and not the income. And I can select what shows and what doesn't show on the report. And then when I go back, I guess I have to go back here. When I go back, I then go back to the reports page, and I can do the same thing for report number 17 and select options for that report. And again, I can look at it and see what's going on. Have they given me all the information? They've given me JP Morgan account, but and a Bitcoin account, but where's the checking account? They didn't give me any checking or savings. So maybe it's complete, maybe it's not. And I can PDF these two reports as one document up here on the top right. And that allows me to email that to my client and be able to start the process of saying, you need to make some changes. Now you have two ways of making changes. You can allow the client to do it in the shared file, and they can just go back into their file and make changes. Or you can lock the shared file, and then they can't make any more changes to it. And you want them to just give you the changes. I usually like them to just give me the information in writing, like in an email, or marking up the PDFs that I sent them. But it's up, everybody has their own workflow. I'll get into some of the substantive questions that you guys are asking in a few minutes. I'm just going to do some procedural stuff now. And then I'm going to look at, so I've looked at the data, I've made any changes. Now I can start working with it. So let's start with reports. We have a child support guideline report, which allows you to, oops, I guess I'm in the wrong state on this baby. So let's go and change this back to New York. The other one that I was showing you was in New York already, but this one, okay. So we can go, here's your basic support, the CSSA report and worksheet. We can go and look at the maintenance worksheet, or we can look at the net worth statement, and it's going to automatically export all the information, move the information into your net worth statement. So you have some options here. I personally, on my reports in Illinois, I like to select all the options. I like all those things, but I think they make a cleaner report and easier to read, but certainly up to you guys individually or as a firm to figure out how you want to do that. Now, I can also look at some other really helpful reports. Let's look at the view edit taxes. So right now I'm showing like 50 years of taxes. And why am I showing you that? Because there's going to be some reasons to look at future years and we can go out up to 50 years. That is a setting that you can do in assumptions, in settings assumptions. I can decide how many years for cash and net worth projections. So if I make it only 5 years, and now I go back to that view added taxes report, it's only going to show me 5 years. Any tax law changes that are already in the law are built into the program. So after 2026, all of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act personal tax changes will sunset if Congress doesn't do anything to change it. Given their history, that might be a really good chance that that'll happen. And this gives you a pro forma tax return. So it shows you all the income. I like this because it gives me kind of at a glance, have I allocated everything to the right people? Oh, wait a minute. What's this 15.6 of other income? It should have been for the other party. Let me move it over, and I wouldn't move it over here. I would go back into the data. Now I could move it over here and just see what the result would be in taxes, but I could be impacting other calculations. So I don't want to leave overrides in the program as much as possible. So I can put a 0 here and 15.6 here. And I've overridden those numbers. And now all the following numbers are going to change. But it also may or may not change other calculations like the child support. So all I have to do to change it back is delete that information from the form, or in the desktop version of the pop-up will come and say the original value is 15,600. Do you want to change it? Or the original value was 0. Do you want to change it back? And you can do that. So this will give you things like marginal tax rate. It'll give you, so here's the marginal tax bracket. It'll also give you the average tax rate, which is the real tax rate for all income. And that is also helpful. And you can see here that the total federal income tax for this person is a negative $3,500. What does that mean? That means that there are refundable credits, meaning the government is actually going to be sending this person a check. So all of their tax payments will be zeroed out. And then above that, the government will owe them another $3,500. So that's really additional income, and the program treats it that way. Now, so that is the View Edit Taxes report. It is very useful to look at and double check your information or see what the real taxes are for the parties. I'm going to now just give you a glimpse we saw earlier of the More Reports, and the More Reports page will has lawyers, planners, and graphs. You can see at the top of the lawyers page, we have a couple of the common settings, including the years for projections. I'm not going to go over projections in this webinar. I do that in the advanced webinar. You're more than welcome to sign up for that one. Just go to our website and go to the live training page, and feel free to sign up for any of the other trainings that are there. So we have for lawyers, for planners, and graphs. Obviously, lawyers can use the planners page, planners can use the lawyer page. We just divide them up to make it a little easier to manage. And there are lots and lots of in reports of all sorts that you can look at. And I would recommend, as you're learning the program, check out those reports, look at what they are. Oftentimes, you'll find something that will be so helpful in a particular case, some way of looking at the information that can really be helpful, either with your own client or with opposing counsel, or maybe with the court. And Also, as you're learning the program, you want to look at the report options because that is really helpful. Okay, we have some good questions. Keep them coming. I will get to them. Thank you. So I'm going to just go back to the data entry. And there's one more thing when you are learning the program that I want to show you, and that is the more information screens. So as we look at the data entry, you'll see this little green box with 3 dots that will allow you to put in the more information. And what you're really doing there is fine tuning the information, and that is context sensitive. So a footnote, and we do have footnotes in the program, that's the little comment box, the little box with the little comment bubble. If it's empty, just the empty shell and 3 dots, that is, there's nothing in there. If I put in any text in that, that's going to be my footnote. When I save it, now that footnote is going to be filled in. The comment bubbles filled in. That tells me there's something in there. In the footnote screen, the little pop-up here, you can do a couple of other things with footnotes. You can make the dollar value estimated. So it's marked with an EST next to the number on your reports. That can be very helpful, especially early on in the case when you don't want to be locked into values on your net worth statement, for example, when you haven't had appraisals or anything yet. So you may want to put a little EST next to the real estate value or business value, something like that. You can also put in private text here. Double check this. I'm going to make this a reminder. So it's not going to print as a footnote. Now, when I go to look at all my footnotes, there is a report. If I go into more reports, on the lawyer's page, it's at the bottom. On the planner's page, it's at the top. There is a footnotes report. And you can see here, I've got 2 footnotes in this file, and I have 1 reminder. I can open up the footnote by clicking on the little blue square. And now I've double checked this. I can take out the language that's private text, and then I can go back and save it, and it will now become a footnote. I can make a footnote a reminder by clicking on it as well. Okay, so that's footnotes. But where I was going was also to talk to you about more info. So footnotes look the same throughout the program. More information, the green box with the 3 dots, gives you a way to fine tune the data. And this is context sensitive. So here we're talking about a vehicle. So it gives me vehicle related information. If I went back in and did let's go into the IRA, and I go into more info, it's going to ask for different information that's relevant to an IRA. Is it a Roth, or is it an after-tax 401k? So IRA, 401k, all treated the same in the program, but certainly for tax purposes, it is not treated the same. So there's a way to put in all of this fine-tuning information, which is very helpful, can help with basis for after-tax values, can look at cash flow if we're talking about contributions or distributions. So there's a lot of information there. When you are looking at, for example, income, if we were to look at, let's go into, I don't want expenses, I want income. Let's do it from support and maintenance screen. It's easier. So as I'm looking at the wages, let's say that Cherry doesn't have wages this year, but we think she's going to work in 2 years. She's going to go back to work, and that's what she's going to make. So I can go into more info for her wages. Sorry. And I can put in right here at number 12, enter the year that wages start being paid. And I can say 2024. And then when I look at the wages, here's what her wages are going to be. And you can see here we have the wages going up each year, because one of the things that's a setting at number 9 is at what rate you think Cherry's wages will increase each year. So I could say not at all. And then the wages would end up being the same for every year. Or I could say same as inflation. And an inflation rate is set in the program under assumptions. And I can also make it at a rate of, it's going to go up 3% per year for 12 years. And now when I look at it, I'm only showing 5 years here, but I could show more years. The program is calculating it for more years. And that is always going to be included in your projections. Okay. Now, if you have income that's going to change in a different way, I would put it in as a separate wage and then say it doesn't start. So let's say you think maybe you've got a doctor who's now doing their internship, and then they're going to do their residency, and then maybe a fellowship, and then they're going to be a doctor. That's really 4 different employments. They're going to be a resident for 2 years, and then they're going to be a fellow for 3 years, and then they're going to be a practicing doctor. You could put in that information where it wouldn't start until then and only go for the 2 years. So that's really helpful and a useful feature of the program. Okay, so now for assets, we have the same thing where we have a expanded list, or we have a quick, just put it in. This is what it used to look like, and then we changed it so that it reflects the order of your net worth statement and the information that's needed on the net worth statement. Here, all that information is still going to be here, but it's just in our old order, the way we used to do it. And this is also very helpful for people. You can calculate future support amounts if you go to future years on the reports. So there's a lot of depth to this program. Today, I'm only going to do sort of an overview. So I appreciate all these questions, and they're great questions, but I'm going to keep going on my plan here. So we looked at reports, and we looked at more reports. Now I want to look at the marital property division report. So now this is only going to be the marital property. If you've marked anything as non-marital, it could show up as a footnote or as a separate area. So we can always go here to the options. Let's include an equalization payment, and let's include separate property on the bottom. And I'm not sure if this file, yeah. So here we have part of the pension is separate. So it shows at the bottom of the page. I can also have it show in line in the report. This report I think of as sort of your end result. Who's going to get what? Okay, and how do you get there? So there's several ways to get there. Let's start out with when you enter the data. So as I'm entering the data, I can go to the quick view, and here are data entry options for the page. And if I open that up, you'll see here there's a default percentage. It'll always be to the first party. So whatever percentage you're applying to the first party, the other percentage to make up to 100 would go to the other party. So you can always set it with no default. That's the default is no default. And then you have to assign each asset to who's going to get it. You can also start out with either a 50-50 or by title allocation. You have to make that selection at the beginning before you enter any data. So if I change that, I've got the house going 50-50. And let's say that the title to the house is in Barry's name. If I change this to go by title, it is not changing the allocation of this asset because it's already in there. But if I made it by title and then started entering assets, it would allocate everything by title. And then so that's one way to allocate assets. Another way is to do it asset by asset. So whatever percentage you put here, the other percentage goes to the other party, but this doesn't give you a whole picture. So I like to do it on the analysis tab or page section, and I go down to the property pages, and I go to divide property between the parties. And what this is going to do is, let's start out with a bar chart, and I've got all my assets allocated. If some of them weren't allocated, it would show up here. And I can move things around here, either by percentage, or I can move it by dollar amount. And it will automatically calculate the percentage. And it gives you a running total of the percentage as you go. So on this IRA, maybe I want to move some over, maybe I don't, and the pension. So that's one way to do it. I can also have some options here. How far the parties are, what's our equalization amount? What do we need to move to get to our target percentage? So it could be 50%. You could do any target percentage, and it'll tell you what's needed to get there. So you can leave that as an equalization payment, or you can move assets over. Let's say I'm going to move 78,000. Whoops, went the wrong way. Sorry. And we're going to move that over to Sherry's side. And now we're in a position of almost equal. But is it really almost equal? Because this IRA will have taxes. So it's not really worth 120,000. There are taxes. So let's look at dividing property on an after-tax basis. Okay, go back, take out that override. And it's going to tell me what the tax rates are at retirement. And that is going to use the projections that we were just talking about of what the income's going to be and what the income from wages and income from assets is going to be at retirement. It'll also figure out capital gains tax, and that's a current tax rate. For that one, you need to put in a basis for that to be accurate on an asset. And then you can go down to each asset and see what the after-tax value is going to be. I don't have enough information in this sample file, unfortunately, I can go to the other sample file that has more information. We'll just stay with this one for right now. So this would automatically take out the taxes and show you an after-tax value. You can also, sometimes you don't know right away what the division is that you want to have. So you can start out with a 50-50 and then do a 60-40 division and move things around so that you get that 60-40 split. So maybe here, let's make that 35%. And we're getting there. We're at a 55-45. So why don't I just change that 55-40-45. So now you have different scenarios, and you can add as many scenarios as you'd like. It will copy the first one, or you can have it copy one of the other ones and then keep working on different options. So let's say that Cherry is going to get 50%. Excuse me. So it's going to start moving things around, and then you could do other scenarios. Now, what is in the actual column is what is going to be the amounts in that report of the marital property division. So what I like to do is keep doing this until I get one that I like, and then I can swap for that one. So I can say, okay, I like scenario 1. I'm going to swap the actual for scenario 1, and then it will flip those two columns. And what was scenario 1 is now going to be the actual, and that's what's going to show on that marital property division report. And that saves you time because you don't have to go back in and change every asset to match your scenario, but it'll automatically move all the assets as you've selected here. So that's a feature I use a lot, especially in mediations. Yeah. And then we also have the ability to look at different options for child support in the same way, where you can do different scenarios and change the exemptions, change the overnights, change the income, change the filing status, any of these options that impact support. And you can add, let's do this one. We'll make the overnights. Oh, you guys don't use overnights. You can change who has custody of that person. So we'll make Barry, no, we'll make Cherry have both kids. And it will, let's change Barry's filing status to single. And it should change. I don't know your support calculation that well, but as you change any of these variables, if it needs to change, it will change the support amount. And then you can do the same thing. So here, maybe we'll use the statutory cap and use the higher cap. So we have 3 different scenarios here. And I don't know. Let's see. Something's not working right on this baby. I think I need to give one of them more income. This is a kind of a simple file that was set up not by me. I'm going to add a scenario, and let's change custody to Barry for both kids. and say that now Cherry is going to be single and Barry's going to be head of household. And let's use the statutory cap or no cap. Okay. And it's going to give you the support amounts. And you can see that they've changed based on changing who's the residential parent for the kids. So now, again, if I want scenario 1 to be my scenario, my actual, I can swap and it will flip those 2 columns and give me this one as the actual with 991. And now when I go to my support report, it's going to show me the 991 in support. 990.83. So that's going to be our way of playing around with different support options. Any variables that impact support, you can play around with, and you can choose which variables to include or not include. Now, when it comes to spousal maintenance, we have several options. So we can start out with a spousal maintenance break even. That is in spousal maintenance section of the analysis piece, and in more spousal maintenance break even. And there with one report, if we needed to, let's take out Cherry's income. Let's see what happens. Well, let's take out Barry's income. And now when I go into break even, yes, the spousal break even amount is $569 a month. That's telling me that based on the income and expenses that were put into the program, this is what the recipient, in this case, Barry, would need to get to the point where the income exactly covers all expenses and taxes. And we have an explanation and assumptions. And here's our little short detail report that shows how that would work out. It's a break even. He's $1 short a month on an annualized basis. So, okay, that's the break even, $569 a month. But then is that the amount you want to use for maintenance? So we have several other ways to calculate maintenance. Of course, in your support and maintenance data page, if we go to the complete page, we can go into spousal maintenance to use, and that will allow me to use the guideline amount. And do we want to use calculated maintenance is one of the options here. So if I'm not going to use the calculated maintenance, let's say it's a mediation and I'm negotiating maintenance amount, I can uncheck this and then the dollar amount will go away. And then you can use our tools to figure out what the best maintenance amount would be and put it in there manually. So this checkbox is really 2 purposes. Are we using the calculated maintenance? In other words, that guideline number, and the second thing is there any maintenance at all? So if there's no maintenance at all, it's a post-judgment case or just not a maintenance case, you can uncheck this box and it won't include maintenance. Or you can check this box and it will include the calculated maintenance amount. What are our other options for maintenance calculation? Well, we have many. We can look at meeting the recipient's need. We could pick a dollar amount that we want her to have after tax, okay, on an annual basis. And it will tell you how much maintenance per month is needed to get there. Or we can look at balancing the incomes based on the after-tax income split. So what's the split of after-tax income? And then depending on what that number is, it will tell you what the amount is that's needed. So yeah, these are weird numbers in this case, but it would tell you what that amount is. And we have either the short detail report or we have the expanded report that gives you more detail on those options. And then when you figure out what the maintenance amount should be, you go back into enter data, support and maintenance data, go down to the maintenance section, the maintenance to use section, and either check or uncheck the calculated box, and then put in the amount that you want to have as the maintenance amount. And maybe we'll do it for a few more years than one. Maybe it'll go for 5 years. Whoops. Okay. And the other thing that we can do with maintenance is that we can look at a present value or a buyout of maintenance. So you can either use the actual amount, that 160 for 5 years that we just looked at, or you can do any other way of looking at it. So if I want to use this $3,000 a month for 360 months, this is going to give me my amount. You'll see I've got two different numbers here, and that is because of the state tax. The other variable is the pre-tax interest or the discount rate. And that, if you click on the little question mark, will tell you that we use a recent 20-year T-bond rate. You can change that rate. Let's say that we haven't updated yet, and today the Fed's announced it's now a 3.1 rate. And now it's going to give you that 3.1 rate. And you can do it for both sides. Okay. So that is a very helpful tool for the present value of maintenance. All right. So now let's talk about, we talked about property. We talked about balancing incomes and different ways of looking at maintenance. We talked about the support impact. Let's talk about some other things that we can do with this program. I'm going to answer some of your questions now. I'm going to look at the Q's and A's and the chat. We talked about treating income that may be changing in future years. In terms of child support calculated when both parties earn income, but physical custody is shared 50-50, that will depend on your state rules. Some states have special rules for 50-50 parenting time. Other states do not. One thing to remember is that for IRS purposes, we are going to look at, let me just go back into enter data. And I'm going to go to the support and maintenance data. One of the things to think about is that among the different pieces of information for the children, we're looking at who's the tax dependent, but we're also looking at custody for guidelines. If you have a true 50-50 split, and remember there are 365 days in most years, so the IRS looks at overnights, and based on overnights, somebody is going to have more than 50% in all but leap years, unless you're going to get the kid up at midnight and change homes. So somebody is going to be considered the majority time parent. For tax purposes, and this gets a little complicated, there is a difference between the dependent exemption and the custodial parent or primary residential parent for other tax purposes. You can allocate the dependent exemption. You cannot allocate by agreement the custodial or primary residential parent who has more than 50% plus one overnight. And that 183 overnights can be important because, and you can't allocate it by saying this person will get the custodial parent designation in alternate years. It has to be based on the facts on the ground. Who is the majority time parent? So you could do an agreement that in odd years, mom will have one additional overnight, and in even years, dad will have one additional overnight, thereby creating a majority time parent allocation. But if they're really true 50-50, the IRS has what they call a tiebreaker rule. And that tiebreaker rule for IRS purposes is the higher earning parent is designated the majority time parent. And our program uses that tiebreaker rule. So if you just put in 50-50 parenting time, you are going to give the majority time parent status to the higher earning parent, who often is phased out of any tax benefits that come from being the majority time parent. So you have to be kind of careful about that. And for each state, there are different ways of setting it up. But I would just say be careful about those overnights or the 50-50 time. And in some states, if you have different parents as the custodial parent for guidelines. So let's go to that what if page. And I can set up who is the majority time parent here and change the head of household status. And it is going to change the allocation. So let's change it so that Barry is the primary parent for all of the children. And then Cherry cannot be head of household anymore, even if she got the dependent exemption. And Barry will be the head of household, and it will change your support. So you have to be kind of careful about doing that allocation. And some states are starting to deal with the 50-50 split. I don't know what that is going to be. So the question came in for support purposes. The current support is used. Yes, that is, it's going to be based on the current year, but you can also look at future years if you choose to, doing the way I showed you before. The program projects future Social Security income. Yes, it includes Social Security income in the projections. We'll talk about that more in the advanced training. The income page on the net worth statement was asked. I don't know the answer to that. Let's see. So if I go to the reports and I go to the net worth statement and I go to the gross income page, it's going to give me a gross income report, which is just a breakdown of all that information. And as far as entering the data, when you go to enter data and you go to the income page, expenses and income, and we're going to scroll down to the income part, it will give you the projected 2022 income, which is all you can do for 2022 if we're in the middle of the year, and that gross income worksheet that we were just looking at. Okay, and that's your data entry. Got a couple of questions in the chat too. Yeah, thank you. Oh, I don't know why this left-hand column disappeared from this. Let's see if I go like this. There we go. It's a little better. Sorry, my screen resolution decided to change. Okay, so here's all the information for your net worth statement. And then we have also the quick view for all the different sections that will still flow. So remember, in the program, you're only entering data once, and then you are using it for multiple purposes. Okay, so I think I've answered all the questions that were in the chat and in the Q&A. And that is our program. I did do a printout of the statement of net worth so you can see what it would look like when the data is all in there. And it just automatically fills everything out. You click PDF and here you go. It's all beautifully filled out and ready to file with the court or send off to the other attorneys. So that's our training for today. I hope that was helpful and useful. Anybody who is a trial user, if you want to jump in the water, please feel free to reach out and let me know. We'll get you signed up. And I will take care of you for that. For the New Jersey child support webinar, it should have multiple options. I'll go back in and check that, and we'll get that set up properly today. We're going to be doing these monthly, these reports, so these trainings. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to make it out to New York for one of your bar seminars so I can meet all of you in person that I don't already know. Talk to you soon. Please feel free to reach out with any questions to me or to support@familylawsoftware.com. Thanks.